Chased Across Rooftops by Dogman. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I cannot reveal my name, but I am the younger sibling of a parkour athlete who has achieved some fame and recognition. I left Europe to come here in part to get out from under my sibling's shadow. I too love to run and jump across rooftops, but I will never be great at it, or a champion. Well, except for this one day when I was as good as any parkour athlete in history. For one brief hour, I was the greatest in the world at parkour. You see, I had motivation that day. I was being chased across rooftops by the Dogman. I want to say that's one thing that's better about Europe. We don't have the Dogman. But actually, I did a quick search online and it seems that people do report werewolves and Dogman over on that side of the ocean as well. So, we just live in a dangerous and unwelcoming world. That's the conclusion I draw out of it. I had been invited by an American cousin of mine to stay in Pittsburgh with his wife and child, and I took him up on the offer immediately. I had heard that Pittsburgh was old factories and industrial areas, and I thought it might be a great place to get back in shape on my parkour. When I got there, though, I found it was all forested, at least in that northern part of Pittsburgh where my cousin stayed. I decided to have a little country vacation instead, and took to wandering around in the woods. I had this half-formed idea of doing parkour in the woods, but it just seemed like 12-dimensional chess to me after a few experiments. Besides having to find new places to jump to, you also have to navigate under so many branches as well. I was dilly-dallying in the woods of northern Pittsburgh one evening, jumping from branch to tree to ground, when I inadvertently landed too close to a large humanoid that I should have noticed, but I didn't. I smelled him as soon as I saw him. My eyes were on his level when I was mid-leap, but by the time my feet were back on terra firma, my head was craned back to continue to meet his gaze. I was staring up at what looked like 1,000,000 years of evolution undone. This was something from caveman or even dinosaur times. It was just too large, like 7 or 8 feet tall, incredibly wide and muscular. It was probably as heavy as a big grizzly bear. Come to think of it, it was probably heavier. Imagine a very tall bear that took steroids and worked out until he was completely jacked and you could see every muscle move under his fur. Like a bear with zero body fat but extra healthy. The head was not like a bear's though, grizzly or otherwise. This was something that truly looked vulpine. I don't just mean canine or dog-like. I mean this specifically to me looked like the head of a prehistoric giant wolf. It was almost as big as a horse head, you know. But the body was upright and so humanoid. It had claws on its hands and feet. Possibly I should say paws, but this wolf's front dew claws seemed to have evolved into something almost like thumbs. I guess the reason I'm saying this thing seemed prehistoric is because I can't imagine human beings taking over the earth if we had to compete for resources with something like this bright-eyed wolf-like hairy ape man. The one detail I remember about this Dogman more than any other, though, is that he was standing between me and my American cousin's home. I was going to have to run away from home, then attempt to double back at some point. My mind was already in navigation mode, having been studying the woods for possible new forest parkour moves, and I broke off running with my first step on the ground. Although I've slowed things down to explain to you what I was seeing, I did not, in fact, stick around to take notes on the Dogman's appearance. I sized him up as a bad-smelling danger to life and limb, so I landed in such a way as to grant myself momentum to begin sprinting away from him. Given the Hulk-size immensity of the beast man, I hoped he would be slow-witted and equally slow-moving. My confidence in my own athleticism knew no bounds, and I expected to be out of this situation very shortly. Instead, the Dogman was lightning quick and almost grabbed me with one of its front claw hands straight off the bat. I was panicked for really only the second or third time in my entire life, and the extra adrenaline helped me stay in front of the creature. My confidence level went from assuming this would not take long to wondering if I could possibly survive. That wolfman's arms were so long it felt almost as though he was reaching at me from across the forest. I was in a complete mismatch. Anything I could do, that Dogman could do well better. And then I came to the edge of the woods and I saw the school. There was a school past a parking lot, and I took off knowing full well that my life literally depended on it. There were trees near one wall, and I was able to easily climb one of them, landing myself up on the roof. I wondered if that were a trick that the Dogman could replicate, but I did not stay there waiting to find out. I just kept running across to the middle part of the roof. I wasn't hearing the Dogman pursuing, so I hoped that he had given up the chase. In all honesty, I would have been a meager meal for that creature. I was all muscle and bone. I had very little real meat on me. I hoped against hope that the race was over when I turned back and I saw his hairy arms come up over the top of the wall. That was when I realized he had jumped from the ground to the roof without the help of climbing a tree. If his jumping abilities were that strong, then I was probably already a goner. What then happened was a broken field run across various rooftops of the school building. One time I leaped onto a roof and he followed. I encountered another rooftop and faked him out. While he leaped up there, I cut around the structure and put a slight bit more room between us. Finally, I came around the side and discovered 3 security guards from the school standing down on the ground, insisting to me that I come down and give myself up. I turned around, and that Dogman was charging toward me, mouth open as wide as his flaming bright eyes, spit flying out on both sides as he ran, like a completely savage animal, straight at me. I gladly gave myself up to the security guards, jumping down onto a green garbage dumpster, and from there onto the ground. The guys moved toward me as though they were about to detain me, but I turned, pointed to the roof, and shouted, I was being chased by that. All of us looked up there, and our eyes were met by 2 glowing orbs inside the skull of a giant dog with pointed ears and shoulders wider than a professional wrestler's. All 3 of them screamed and I ran with them for some time. I kept an eye on the Dogman, who no longer wished to pursue. I'm not sure why. One of those bigger guards would have made a better meal than I would have. When I saw what direction the Dogman was walking off in, I simply walked off in the other, eventually making it back to my American cousin's home, unscathed. I told him the story expecting ridicule. Instead, it turned out that he was a huge Bigfoot believer. He didn't doubt me when I said what I'd seen, although he kept insisting to me that I had seen a Bigfoot, not a Dogman. He didn't believe in the Dogman, so he suggested that maybe what I saw was a long-snouted Bigfoot. That wasn't what I saw, though. I saw, as I've already stated, an extremely vulpine head on the animal or man or whatever it was. My cousin invited his Bigfoot friends over, one of whom had seen a Squatch once himself. All of them were amazed that I had seen a cryptid inside Pittsburgh itself. This one guy was very skeptical and said I had seen a bear with mange. They can look a lot like wolves or dogs when they have the mange, and I know that's a fact because I've looked that up on the internet. The thing is, mange is an illness, and it greatly weakens the animal. I was not pursued by a weak animal. This creature was making leaps that had me stunned. It was far stronger than any human being. It It was a greater athlete than any of the excellent parkour athletes I've ever had the privilege of watching. No, I don't think I was chased by a bear or by a Sasquatch. I think it was either a dogman or a wolfman or a werewolf. What I don't understand, though, is why it chased me that way. Was it just because I was running away? Did its instinct force it to chase me? Does it simply perceive all creatures that run away as prey? It just seems to me that I was far too much trouble to pursue for dinner, and that I wouldn't have provided him with very much of a meal at all. I left Pittsburgh as soon as I could without seeming impolite. I believe I was there another 2 or 3 days. I never went into that forest again, though. As thrilling as it was to play parkour with an actual dogman, it gave me bad nightmares, and I've had difficulty digesting my food ever since. 2 of my friends are trying to get me into meditation, because I carry a bad feeling with me throughout the day. I'm not optimistic like I used to be. I feel a sense of doom and hopelessness. It doesn't seem logical to me at all since I escaped that dogman. I succeeded in getting away. I wasn't injured in the least. I wasn't even scratched or bruised. So, why had it affected my psyche so strongly? I might even go see a shrink if I think it'll actually help. I haven't really been the same since I was chased across rooftops by the dogman. Can the dogman mess with your mind? Dear Scary Stories NYC, I had a weird and terrifying experience back when I was 30, in which I myself was nearly killed. I doubt they ever would have found my body either if I hadn't been rescued in such an admittedly random manner. Looking back on it, I now realize that the entirety of my life hinged on that moment, and I can't really explain what happened without assuming that somehow some of this might have been done intentionally by that thing that I saw. And that thing, I guess, had to have been the dogman. I had dumped a nice young woman who loved me in order to go out with a richer, sexier girl who then dumped me. Let's call the nice one Betty and the rich, evil one Veronica. It was a night or 2 after I had been broken up with by Veronica, and I was crying to myself as I drove down a road on the outskirts of town. It was a rainy night, so I enjoyed how it felt as though the entire world were crying along with me due to my heartbreak. It was then that I saw Veronica, the girl who had dumped me. She was crossing the lonely, unlit 2-lane highway in the rain with no umbrella. She was wearing a business suit, her knee-length skirt flapping in the breeze of the storm. I knew that suit. I knew that face. I knew what her hair looked like, wet, blowing in the wind. And I knew that was my ex-girlfriend. I assumed her car must have broken down, but when I looked around, I didn't see any vehicles anywhere, parked or driving. I was the only person or vehicle around for miles, and I needed to stop and see why Veronica had just walked into those dark woods. Pulling the car off the side of the highway, I put my blinkers on and I hoped I wouldn't be in there for very long. The storm was blowing pretty well, and the rain stung a bit as it battered me from all angles. Walking through the mucky, muddy dirt into the woods alongside the road, I called out to Veronica. It was a bit quieter inside the tree cover, and I thought I had heard Veronica react to me calling her. I walked in the direction of that sound, and I asked if she was all right, or if she needed help or assistance. Again, I could have sworn I heard her voice saying something inarticulate, and I continued a bit further into the trees. It was dark in there, and I had a sense of unease about all of this. Something seemed wrong. Nothing was making any logical sense. Rounding a patch of trees, I came face to face with, not Veronica, no, but a living nightmare. There was a big, nasty-looking monster with matted fur and a dog-like monster face. And when it saw me, its eyes literally lit up, and it roared something like a big cat would. This was no big cat, though. It looked like a caveman with a long snouted head. I mean, that head was something more fitting on a jackal or a hyena than on a humanoid or anthropoid body, but there it was. I think this was what people call Dogman, because I can fully understand why someone would look at this thing's head and think they were seeing an upright walking dog. It was not like a modern dog, really, but it was not too far off from some illustrations I've seen of primitive wolves from prehistory. The body, on the other hand, was not like anything I've ever seen in archaeology. This was something more out of mythology or fiction. It looked like a fur-covered man, but the legs were more like those of a satyr, or maybe a dog. I did not really see if those legs ended in hooves like a devil, or paws like a wolf, but in either case they were bent like the hind legs of a beast, not like human legs at all. Whatever this was, it essentially walked on its toes, with the equivalent of its heels held up in the air. I heard a female voice calling my name and I screamed. I thought it was the Dogman calling me, but in fact, the sound was coming from behind me. I next heard a male voice also calling my name, and the entire situation became far more surreal. Betty, not Veronica, but Betty, appeared behind me, the rain causing her mascara to stream down her cheeks. This was a vision that brought me great joy mixed with extreme confusion. It was the Dogman playing with my head again. And then, behind Betty, walked out her big new boyfriend Bubba, armed and looking pretty dangerous in that moment. Bubba, an off-duty local police officer, looked at me for 1 second before his eyes widened, and he looked above and past me. Quickly taking aim, he deafened all of us by firing once in the direction of the creature. By the time I could turn around to see if he had connected, though, that Dogman was already completely gone. It had run off before Bubba could even squeeze his finger. That's how fast the Dogman was. It also might be possible that the creature was able to read Bubba's intentions, which would logically give it the extra half second it needed to avoid being hit. Bubba was muttering something that my deafened ears couldn't make out, and he seemed to be about to charge off after the Dogman deeper into the woods. Both Betty and I held him back, and in that moment, our hands touched. I remember looking into her eyes as Bubba ranted on about something I couldn't understand through my temporarily muffled ears. So what had happened was that Betty and Bubba had been out shopping. He was driving to work and she was going to take the car home after that. When they saw the blinking car lights of my car out alongside the highway, Bubba pulled over to investigate. Betty recognized my car and my license plate number, so they knew it was mine. Not seeing me anywhere outside on the highway, Bubba decided to investigate the woods and was unable to prevent Betty from tagging along. The rest of the story you already know. Now I want to remind you that the entire time I was driving on that road on that rainy night, I saw no other traffic. None. Not any. 0 cars. And then, the one car that does pull up had someone in it that knew my license plate by heart, and another person in it who was armed and able to scare off the Dogman that was about to eat me or worse. The chances of that seemed impossibly small to me, and I realized the fact that I'm still alive is some kind of a miracle. It makes me feel like there's something important that I still have yet to do. There must be some reason I was saved. Maybe I can do something important for the good before it actually is my time to go. Then again, there will be those who say that life is random and has no meaning. But that Dogman's appearance that night had meaning, because my life changed so drastically, for the better, afterward. So after I was rescued, Bubba had to go to work, as I said. Betty hopped in my car, and we got something to eat at a nearby diner. The two of us got reacquainted that night. we probably would have gotten right back together right away, except that her boyfriend was volatile and armed, so we decided to play the long game. She and I did keep in touch, but we kept it on the DL. Eventually, she caught Bubba cheating on her, and then we were able to publicly see each other after that. There was nothing Bubba could say about it, and eventually, he forgot about the two of us. Betty and I are still together to this day, so you might say that the Dogman played matchmaker in that sense. In case you're wondering if that really was Veronica walking into those woods, I asked around, and she was home that rainy night. She was watching movies with her new guy. She was not out walking in those woods, nor was any other human female as far as I think. It was that Dogman I saw, but for some reason, he made me see Veronica. You can argue with me about it all you want, but I don't see how else I can explain it. Maybe he picked the image of her from my mind and thought that he could use it to disguise himself. Maybe he thought I'd just keep driving because I was seeing a human cross the road. But that wasn't just any human to me, obviously. So, did the Dogman's attempt to throw me off the trail backfire? Or did he in fact deliberately appear to me as Veronica? Did he want me to follow him into those woods? Is this an ability the creature has to attract prey? A means of getting his next potential meal to serve itself up willingly, with no defense? Or was I just so messed up in the head that night, missing my ex so badly, that when I saw the Dogman, I somehow by myself inside my own mind swapped out the image of that monster and replaced it with a projected image of the monster who had broken my heart? Was it my own depression and sadness that caused this incident to happen? Or is it really true? Is this really a thing? Can the Dogman really mess with your mind? Hey, it's your old pal Bigfoot here with the good news that since we have 10,000 subscribers now, YouTube is allowing us to make merch. We've already gotten requests for specific items from Spring, which is formerly called Teespring. We're hoping to create all or as many as possible of the items people have requested, so if you have anything you'd like us to have available, please just tell us in the comments. We hope to open the store any day now, but we can always add more to it later. Until that point, we survive largely thanks to contributors like today's executive producer, the Friendly Futurist. Shout hooray and raise your fist. The show is made possible by the Friendly Futurist. If you would like to be a Scary Stories executive producer and get to see our secret episodes, just join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com, or else do what the Friendly Futurist did and click that jolly happy join link under this or any of our videos. And now, here's our spokesdog Henry Lee Dogman to explain anything I may have left out. Hank, thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com, and that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.